Russia, one of the world's biggest oil exporters, is now importing gasoline from India to keep its own fuel market supplied. That reversal is one of the clearest signs yet that Ukraine's attacks on Russia's energy system are creating problems far beyond the battlefield. A cargo carrying roughly 68,000 tons of gasoline from India has already reached Russia's Arctic port of Vatino. The fuel was loaded in India and moved through a complicated maritime route before entering the Russian supply system. The cargo is now being transported inland, including by rail, toward Russian buyers. This is not simply an unusual trade deal. It reveals a serious weakness in the Russian energy machine. Russia produces enormous quantities of crude oil, but crude oil is not the same thing as finished gasoline. Refineries are the critical link that turns crude into the fuels used by cars, trucks, industry, and the military. And this is where Ukraine has been trying to strike. Repeated drone attacks have targeted refineries, fuel depots, and other parts of Russia's petroleum infrastructure. One major example was the Omsk refinery, Russia's largest refinery and a major gasoline producer. After a drone strike damaged equipment there in July, the facility halted processing, adding pressure to an already stressed market. Other Russian facilities have also suffered disruptions, forcing the country to rely increasingly on alternative supplies. By the summer, gasoline shortages were spreading across multiple Russian regions. Some stations began limiting how much gasoline each customer could purchase. In Moscow, major fuel companies have reintroduced sales caps as shortages and seasonal demand put additional pressure on supplies. That creates a strange contradiction. Russia has plenty of oil, but not always enough usable gasoline where it is needed. And that distinction is strategically important. Ukraine does not need to destroy every Russian refinery to create economic pressure. It only needs to disrupt enough processing capacity to create bottlenecks inside the system. Once those bottlenecks appear, Moscow has several choices: restrict exports, redirect supplies, change fuel standards, or import finished products. Russia has increasingly used all of those tools. Moscow banned fuel exports to protect domestic supplies and began bringing in petroleum products from neighboring countries in Asia. Belarus and Kazakhstan have helped fill some gaps, while Asian suppliers are becoming increasingly important. India is now a particularly important part of that story. Indian refineries have become major exporters, while global supply disruptions have increased demand for refined fuel from reliable producers. For India, the situation creates a commercial opportunity. For Russia, it is a reminder that being an energy superpower does not make a country immune to supply shocks. There is another important layer to this story: logistics. Moving gasoline from India to northern Russia is far more complicated than supplying a nearby domestic refinery. Every extra transfer, port movement, and rail connection adds time, cost, and vulnerability. And that means refinery attacks can create consequences even when Russia still has large crude reserves underground. The impact can also spread beyond ordinary drivers. More expensive or scarce gasoline affects trucking, agriculture, construction, and other sectors that depend on reliable fuel. That can increase costs across the economy and make the energy war more politically sensitive inside Russia. But there is an important limit to the story. Russia still has enormous oil resources, substantial refining capacity, and multiple ways to reroute supplies. So the current crisis does not mean Russia is running out of oil. It means Ukraine has found a way to attack the conversion system that turns Russia's energy wealth into usable fuel. And that changes the strategic calculation. The battlefield is no longer the only place where Russia's energy capacity can be weakened. The bigger question now is how long Moscow can keep repairing, rerouting, and importing fuel before the cost becomes a strategic problem of its own. Because when an oil exporting giant starts buying gasoline from abroad, the message is bigger than the shipment itself. It suggests that in modern warfare, controlling energy is not only about producing oil. It is about keeping the entire system moving. And right now, Ukraine is proving that even a country sitting on some of the world's largest energy reserves can be vulnerable at the refinery gate. Russia may still have the oil. The emerging battle is over whether it can reliably turn that oil into the fuel its economy and war machine need.